Here we go again, lecture 3. Lecture 3. Continuing on the motif of the family photograph. So I've talked about the archiving, I've talked about some forms of transformation that have taken place in the history of the family photograph and also the history of the family, which the photograph has either reproduced in imagery or has prompted through its image-making, metaphor making powers, right? So what I want to talk about now is the notion of authenticity and naturalness that currently is the vogue in the family photograph, right? So even if we're posing around a tree or in some sort of milestone moment, if we are striking a pose, the overarching emotion that is supposed to inform a family is that of authenticity, right? These are real people with real relationships with one another, and their love for each other is real and lasting. And the nuclear family once again becomes a sort of epitome of that realness. It isn't an unarguable point, though, right? How much of the love, the emotions that are fostered in a family, how much of that is obligatory, how much of that is a sense of responsibility, and how much of that is, in fact, viscerally true, is a very painful and very problematic question that we must ask. Just like the family photograph might be responsible for some of our ideas of what a family should look like, what a family should do, what a family should take photographs of, just like that, I would suggest it is possible for the sentiments expressed and contained in a family photograph to present themselves as natural, that we should desire to have these in our family, and not just desire them, but to desire to have them naturally, right, exist in the family. So to put it in simpler, if also cruder terms, the question we must ask ourselves is, does something like the imagery of the family, as presented in family photographs, for example, impose upon us a sense of certain emotions that we must naturally feel for one another in a family? Is the love that we feel and that we see in family photos natural and authentic to the state of the family? Or is it portraiture? Is it a ritual that we have kind of subscribed to, and now that has become natural in our experience, but is not necessarily natural? So what I should correct and clarify that. It is naturalistic in our experience, but may not necessarily be natural. I know we have discussed in previous conversations how love and respect are things that are earned, right? That they don't necessarily spring and retain themselves without any sustainable energies that allow those emotions to be reproduced and experienced through substantial periods of time, right? So when we say we love our family, is it because some part of us has understood the culture within which families are supposed to be loved and loving? And if that is the case, what is the role played by imagery, What is the role played by the myth-making of art? Art revolving around the family, like the genre of the family photograph. What is the role played by the family photograph in making the love of families solidly present and available for cultural consumption? This is something which the article dealt with, right? And those of you that read the article know what I'm talking about already. In modernity, when families literally don't spend too much time together, because members of the family, the adult members usually, are working, if not full-time, part-time, if not out of doors, they're busy in of doors, domestically or otherwise, right? So because time together is shrinking, the myth-making about the value of family time together has become, I don't want to say toxically commercialized, but I could say that if you push me to it. But certainly, family time together has become commercially fetishized, right? So we see a lot of advertisements on TV, online, wherever, which show us families spending time together, doing things together. We don't see too much of family time in which, say, children are sitting alone in one room when, one of the parents is in the kitchen trying busily to cook or put together a dinner while the other family member is sleeping after a very long day's work. We don't see that representation in ads. We might see it in drama, right? In movies, in shows that are realistic about the current environment of the family, but we don't see it in the glam shots that are ads, right, or the idealized images that we're sold. You don't buy insurance based on the kind of mundane, tragic realities of life. You buy it based on idealized versions that we have, right? So, what is this lie then that we're feeding ourselves? If the truth is that families barely spend time together, or that when they spend time together, it is not in these joyous activities, but it is in everyday mundane things, sometimes serious things, sometimes unpleasant things, right? Like a family could be getting together to talk about the distribution of wealth, right? It could be about loans that need to be paid. It could be about somebody's diseases that need to be addressed urgently, somebody's bills that somebody else has to pay because, that person does not have the resources to do so on and so forth, right? There are many, many ways in which families engage with one another. The time of families together is not necessarily fun and games. Not always, right? So why don't we, if we are to be authentic, why don't we engage with those moments in family photos? And that is a question I want you to address. Literally, I want you to comment on that. Why don't we show the diversity of family life and family time together in family photographs? Why do we not want to memorialize or archive those? Would it not be more educational and informative to, say, people who want to be part of a family or who want to start a family to know that this is a reality? Would it be useful? Or would it deter us from being part of a family or from starting a family if we saw all of its reality? Right? If we saw what most of family time looks like, as opposed to what the best of family time looks like, right? So I truly want you to comment on this. Is something which is going to count as class participation. So there, pay attention, please, and respond in your comments threads in response to these lectures. The Other thing I want to talk about in this lecture is how we might go about diversifying the image of family life and of family experience through the art, that is the photograph, through the art of photography and through the medium that is the photograph, right? Through a medium that is both old and new, that is the photograph. Specifically, I want to consider how the photographs I posted are trying to do that, right? So some of the photographs that I posted were by a very famous, and they were all artistic photographs. Well, not all. One of them was from the Awkward Family Photos website, the one with the woman with the broken nose, or seemingly broken nose, and her facial injuries and her two children, right? It was almost a garish photograph. I was extremely uncomfortable looking at it, so uncomfortable that I almost laughed, right? Because why the heck is she posing and looking happy when, all the storylines that are going on in my head are screaming domestic abuse? Right, that's again the storyline, the myth of the broken nose. She might simply have fallen off a ladder, but there is no telling. But because there is no, quote, father figure or male figure other than the children in this picture, that amateur moment of the family photograph is authentic, too real, right? We want it to be edited. But other than that picture, the remaining pictures I included in the comments or in the posts on Facebook and on Moodle are professional photographs by artistic photographers. Specifically, a couple of those photographs are by Diane Arbus, who wanted us to confront the absurdities of life, who wanted us to confront, moreover, the awkwardness of authenticity, right? And to think about reality as it exists for people who are not usually represented when we talk about the universal, when we talk about the realistic. Who are we leaving behind, right? So she really wanted us to focus on difference and focus on the fact that we leave out entire worlds of people, right? We leave out entire demographics of people when we present the ideal family. We don't usually have pictures showcasing disability. Right? We don't usually have pictures showcasing the what we might consider anomalous, what we might consider ugly, what we might consider monstrous, right? And she really, in her art, in her photography, removed the normal, the celebrated images of individuals and families from her work, and she rendered beautiful, rendered normal the lives and experiences and bodies of those that mainstream society excluded from their narratives. So the photographs of the family that I included were representative of the people who don't usually get photographed, or if they are photographed, we don't usually want to see them in mass production and mass circulation. I would like to hear from you what you think about those photographs, right? Are they appropriate? Are they inappropriate? Do they qualify as family photographs? The last lecture I will have in this series, which is going to be the next lecture, is going to focus on this notion of appropriateness and inappropriateness of what comprises the genre of the family photograph, right? I will expect you to respond to that lecture by thinking, by sharing, if you will, your thoughts on the ideas of appropriateness and inappropriateness in the context of family photos. right? Thank you for your time. I will be back in just a few minutes with the last lecture in this series.